called Starting a Business This Year, Avoid These 8 Rookie Mistakes. We've talked about 4 of them. Now, here's one. We can get Callan Sr. or Cal Sr.
Cal Sr.
Or Callan. Yeah.
Or Callan involved. It's not checking to see if you're legally permitted to use your business name.
Use a business name?
Yeah, specifically the name. Yeah, that's a little bit specific.
That happens, yeah. And
there's a few other things they might not do, too.
Starting businesses, I've run into this, and also representing a lot of small businesses. That's something that we cover when we do incorporations, and they say, oh, I've got this great name. I'm going to name it ABC. And it's like, okay, that's great. You know, if you're going to be, what's your market? Well, I'm just going to be here. Well, then you might be fine. Well, we're going to franchise, or we're going to go out here. I plan to open up 5 of these. Okay, well, maybe you need to check that out. You can go to the USTPO, which is the Patent and Trademark Office, and do an internet search for a name. And then you can also file for trademark protection on that name. But it's always good. And nowadays, what do people do? Domain names. That's where they go. They go directly to check out the domain name, and if it's a cool one and they can get it, well, that's going to be the name of the business. Which is not a bad idea, but that's a good place to start and check things out.
I was going to tell you that this has changed. You know, I can remember when I had to go downtown and open up the big book and see if I can see the name Joe's Place in there, so I can take that name for my first restaurant. You know, and then go to the counter and say, "Can I have this name?" You know, and now
this was back
pretty
in the 50s.
much you'll go to the domain names, and that's kind of how you work backwards, and then go to an attorney and say, okay, here's what I want. Go ahead and make this happen for everything else.
And a lot of times the domain name is the front of the business, and it could be anything.com, but then your business name could be different. So in North Carolina, you call it doing business as, and you file what's called an assumed name certificate in the county in which your primary business is located. So that's what you would do. It could be, Joe Enterprises, but your business name would be
DBA. I hate Wayne.
Or business guy. I hate Wayne. I love the Panthers.
Oh my gosh.
Neutral.
Neutral.com. Yeah.
I guess you would say too that just because the domain name's available doesn't mean it's a legal name for the business, right?
Right. So it depending again upon your range and things like that. You don't want to get your business started. You don't want to get 6 months, a year down. You don't want to invest in marketing around this name and Google AdWords and searches and all that time and resources and money in something, and get a nasty gram, which is what we call them.
And my point is, it's not happening as much as it used to because a lot of people are using their domain name as a corporation. And so when you go to the website to get it, if it's available, pretty much if you do it in a reasonable period of time, you're going to be able to get that as your corporation as well. So it's an issue. It's not been as big an issue as I'd say as it used to be.
You don't want to get down the road and get that nasty letter from the attorney saying, hey, we've got a trademark on this name. You're confusingly similar to our client, and we're going to sue you. You don't want that.
And it's so simple.
Yeah.
You know, Joe, I have that problem. You know, I have a famous name, Bill Russell. People used to ask me, do people confuse you for the basketball player? I said, no, but they stop him in the airport and say, are you the famous chamber guy? So I understand that.
I get that. I can see that happening.
BillRussell.com.
Yeah, there we go.
The man.
Hey, while we're talking about legal issues, number 6 is sort of related, although partly tax, and that is another rookie mistake is choosing the wrong business structure when registering your business. Now, a lot of that is around taxes, right? But there are legal issues as well.
Yeah, again, it depends on the type of business you're in. That when we look at an analysis of that, you're always looking at tax benefits first, and then you're looking at liability. What's your exposure? What's your potential exposure? A lot of that could be handled by insurance, and depending on what you want to do, are you bringing in a lot of investors? Are they passive? Are they active investors? It helps determine what type of structure you might need. And I guess the point of the article is, you like the name, you don't want to get too far down the road, realize that, maybe having that flexible LLC would have been better because now I could bring in this investor who's got the real cash because I need that. And they're not going to bug me every day and tell me how to run the business. I just need their money. Or if you're going to do an S Corp or something like that, a traditional Inc.
There is nothing that a small business person should do than this. Spend time on this, because the corporate structure and the advice from an attorney is so important, because you have to answer the questions, what if? Then there's an operating agreement that's attached to this. This is a very important piece, and if you're not upfront and genuinely open with your attorney, they cannot advise you properly to make sure you're doing this correctly, because the structure depends on what you the operating structure. Are you going to have a partner? Are you going to have investors at some point in this process? It really matters, and it is so complex. Not just your CPA should be making this decision. So many times they go to a CPA and they say, oh, well, based on your tax situation, you need to do X, Y, Z. I've got clients that we're closing a business, and the attorney asks for the operating agreement, and they say, I don't think I have one.
Ooh.
And I'm thinking, how do you do that?
Yeah, that's one of the, the business plan is good. And I always advise clients, do your business plan. You may never look at that business plan again, but you've been through the exercise.
Right.
You've gone through it. You've thought about it. But the operating agreement's the same thing. Because when I get down and talk to these clients and say, okay, what happens when you and your partner, who are very excited to be working together, what happens when you get divorced? Well, what do you mean divorce? Well, what happens when the company doesn't work out? Well, what's the value of the company going to be? What's the formula? Well, we're not going to break up. We're doing great.
We're going to be together forever. Wayne loves me.
Yeah, that's right. And so,
We've seen how that works.
so going through the process, asking those questions, make them think about things that they haven't thought about yet. That leads to the structure, and it always ends up changing the relationship a little bit, but for the better, because everybody knows what they're getting into.
The seventh one I've never run into before.
Can we go back for a second?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
I know this bores you, but this is really important.
I'm just trying to get this done
Because
before our half-hour break.
Cal,
so we have time to talk
Cal
about it.
Sr. said something that's really insightful, and that is it changes the relationship. And that's why they don't want to sit down and talk about this. They would prefer to keep it general and vague. And it is a mistake to do that, because that general and vague turns out to be mean and angry sometime down the future. And it really is important that you do this on the front end. And that's such an important point that you make, because it's difficult to sit there and talk to your partner about what I want if. That's so important.
Yep. Yeah, it's a good one to get out of the way.
Well, rookie mistake number 7, again, I haven't run into this, neglecting to set up a business bank account.
Well, I'll tell you why they do that, because
I understand, but I've never run into that problem before.
Oh, I got it all the time. I got people still running their account out of a bank account that their mom set up for them when they were 12. Yeah, absolutely. There's a timing that comes involved in this, and you've got to have your tax ID number and your identification number and all of this stuff to open up the bank account. But you want to get started, so you're
eager to get going.
That's right.
You hit the ground running.
Well, I understand.
and then you'll get to it.
Right.
But from a legal perspective, if you're you're living off the same account you're running your business out of, well, then sometimes the law would consider you the same entity. And so if there's liability with your company, they may be able to go after you personally.
So this great corporation that you set up, that your attorney told you was going to protect you from liability, you messed up by using your mom's account, and could get your mom involved too.
But that's true. So yeah, I could see people doing that, but and I have seen it myself too. But I say you need a separate bank account now.
Well, the last one we've kind of already talked about, but it's important to say. So the last rookie mistake is thinking that having a plan, goals, and objectives is optional.
Well, yeah, that's for you to talk about, Wayne, really. I mean, most of the time what they have is sort of what I like. I connect to it. They've got a vision. They've got a passion. And they think that's their plan.
And they think it's enough.
Right.
We've had this argument before. And in fact, statistically, it's one of the biggest reasons why businesses fail so quickly. So they've got no plan. They're just reacting. And as a result, you don't hit benchmarks. You run out of cash. And so at least, like Callan said, I mean, if you at least go through the process, you're thinking about it. whether you ever look at it again or not. And that's what people normally do when I help them with a plan. They never look at it again. But it's the thought process of putting it together, and preferably set up some benchmarks so you know that you're hitting them or know you need to adjust and turn up the steam.
Yeah. Well, a business plan is just like what Cal was talking about with the operating agreement. It forces you to answer questions that possibly you had never even thought of. And so it will give you a lot of value moving forward. And it doesn't take that much time to do, actually.
Exactly.
Exactly.